He writes on Parshat Vayakhel as we get closer and closer to the holiday of Purim. We'll try to make connections between our Parshiot and the anticipation we have for the holiday of Purim. When we open up the commanding of building the Mishkan, the Pasuk says, Daber el bnei Yisrael v'ikhu li truma me'et kol ish asher yidveno libo. The beginning of the commanding for building the Mishkan is about the individual deciding if he wants to volunteer. Kol ish asher yidveno libo. Every individual who feels that they want, give over a truma to the Mishkan. When we enter into Parshat Vayakhel, we see that there's a totally different experience in order to get to the Mishkan. And here it says, Vayakhel Moshe et kol adat b'nei Israel. Suddenly, as we start to build the Mishkan, it transitions from the individual of Parshat Truma, Ish, asher yidveno libo, to Vayakhel et kol adat Israel, to every single person being there as a community and as a nation. And the question is, why does Moshe begin from the individual Truma and finish with the national unity? And to return to that question, there are two questions that the Sefat Emet asks about the mitzvot of Purim. Every holiday has certain mitzvot. And usually the mitzvah is connected to the essence of the holiday. When we look at Pesach, the main mitzvah is the matzah. And there's no question the link between the matzah and Pesach. When we look at the holiday of Hanukkah, we know that the candles were a big miracle, according to Masechet Shabbat of Kaf Bet, that we see there that the mitzvah was that they went into the Mishkan and the candles lit for a longer amount of time. So the mitzvah is connected and linked to the essence of the holiday. On Shavuot we receive the Torah and therefore we learn the Torah. On Purim there are 4 mitzvot. Mishloach manot, giving presents to each other. Matanot le'evyonim, giving presents to the poor. Mishteh v'simcha, you sit in a suda with other people. And Mikra Megillah, we read the Megillah together. Those are the 4 mitzvot of Purim. And so the Sefat Emet, in the year 1889, he says, V'amitzvot shetiknu, madua tiknu. What's the relationship between the mitzvot of Purim and Purim? If you wanted to have a lottery, then I'll understand that connects to the Megillah. If you want to speak about salvation and winning a war, that's what happened. What does Mishloach Manot? Matanot le'evyonim and mishteh have anything to do with the holiday of Purim? And the Sefat Emet says in such a sharp way, there's one thing that links these four mitzvot together. The only holiday that you need someone else to do the mitzvah is the holiday of Purim. In order to do mishloach manot, you need someone else. In order to give matanot le'evyonim, you need someone else. In order to do a mishteh v'simcha, you need someone else. And in order to read the Megillah, you need 10 people. And these mitzvot are revealing that the idea of Purim is the transition from thinking that an individual could redeem the people to an understanding that an individual cannot redeem the people. That on your own you cannot build. That by yourself you will never survive. And that when you create your own ability, sometimes you lack the feeling of responsibility to the bigger picture. And so says the Sefat Emet, the idea of Purim is kinuso v'kinus banav. When we look at the Megillah of Megillat Esther, it says Va'ish Mordechai lo yichra v'lo yishtachaveh. Says the Midrash, such a painful word, Yehudi Yechidi. It's not that Mordechai didn't bow down. It's that he was the only one. The rest of the Jews were all bowing down. And out of all the millions of Jews in Shushan, one Jew, Yehudi Yechidi, he was the only one. And he stood by himself in the gates of Achashverosh. And he sent Esther by herself into the palace of Achashverosh. And he says to Esther, you must redeem the Jews. And Esther says to him 2 words. Lech knos. Mordechai, I am not going to the king. All of us are going to the king. Unite the people to understand that I am a messenger and an image of them, but I'm not going on my own. And on a certain level, she says to Mordechai, you're standing and you're fighting and you're winning and you're doing so much, but you're Yechidi. And Esther, on a certain underlining message, says to Mordechai, the only redemption will be through Lech Knos, and therefore the mitzvot of Purim are mitzvot that you are not able to do on your own, saying to you, you cannot redeem yourself, and you cannot bring redemption on your own, and you cannot create anything in the world by yourself. There's one simple story that can help us understand the link between these two parts of the Parsha of Vayakhel and the idea of the mitzvot of Purim. I have the privilege to be marrying somebody named Zev Suna, someone who I've grown up with for the past 10 years. And so we were speaking on the phone, and he said to me, Yair, how do we make sure that we're not just in love, but that we stay in love? How do we know that under our chuppah, we're beginning something that will last forever? And I said to Zev that falling in love is very selfish. It's focused on yourself, but being in love is focused on the other. And the idea of Parshat Truma is that it begins from something personal. But the greatest growth of a person is Parshat Vayakhel, when he realizes that the best individual is aware of the fact that community does not contradict you, that the Vayakhel is not belittling you, and that having a nation is not a contrast to you, it's an expansion on you. So it begins from understanding your place. Truma, ish asher yidveno libo. But then you realize that the greatest potential is that you can be part of something bigger than just you. And the same thing we see in the Megillah, it begins with Mordechai saying, I have an identity. I am a Yehudi, and I will stand up, and I will not lichro, and I will not bow down. But then Esther says, Mordechai, the greatest you is when you're able to be aware of the fact that we need the klal, we need the community, because it's not a contrast to the individual. And so when we fall in love and we get married, it's an experience of personal growth and personal achievement. But to stay in love, it's when you realize that the other person that you love is the greatest growth of you as a person. And my bracha to all of us, when we think about the mitzvot of Purim, we recognize that the idea of this holiday is to go beyond yourself. And when we look at the transition from Truma to Vayakhel, we recognize that we must first realize who we are, but then realize that the community is not a contradiction to our personality and to our essence. And through that, our personal dreams should help us see the bigger dreams and feel that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. Shabbat Shalom.